Dr. Wishnick, we'll begin with you.
Thank you very much to the Commission for this opportunity. I'd just like to reiterate that these are my personal views and not those of CNA or its sponsors. This morning, we have heard in the previous panels about the cooperation among the 4 countries under study here. And my focus is on the extent of their policy coordination and the means that they have to achieve that coordination. So these 4 countries have complex relationships. And with the exception of their individual decisions to support Russia's full-scale war in Ukraine, I don't see broader coordination emerging among them in the military security sphere. And the only evidence of policy coordination I found was in Sino-Russian interactions in the disinformation sphere, as Chris Walker and others have found. There are contradictory trends in China's military cooperation with these states. If we look at China and North Korea, this is the only country that China has a military alliance with. But many Chinese experts caution that this is largely on paper, and it's not clear that China would follow through with the commitments that are made there. Although China and Russia are deepening their military cooperation, as I will discuss further, they both deny that they have an alliance at all. China and Iran have been developing their military cooperation over many years, and both see drawbacks to this for various reasons. And I would caution that the ties among these 4 countries predate the war in Ukraine, which was the subject of earlier discussion this morning. And these relationships will endure, however problematic aspects of them might be. China-Russia military cooperation is deepening, and we have seen new trends, but there are also some limits to this cooperation. We have seen greater consultation, including 2 5-year roadmaps. Arms sales have been reinvigorated since 2014. We have seen some new trends. Chinese and Russian actors participating in gray zone actions, such as maritime cable cutting in the Arctic region. We have seen greater cooperation by Chinese and Russian coast guards in maritime law enforcement, also in the Arctic. And we have seen more frequent and complex military exercises, though these have largely been for training and signaling purposes. I argue that interoperability is not really the goal of China-Russia military cooperation or of, for the most part, of the other sets of bilateral cooperation in this area. We have seen no trilateral exercises involving China, Russia, and North Korea, though Russia may have proposed them recently. There have been a series of maritime security exercises with Russia, China, and Iran. These have largely been for anti-piracy missions, and they also serve to demonstrate the geographic scope of the Sino-Russian partnership. Despite some of the limitations that I can discuss in the questions, China largely sees Russia as an asset, not a liability. And there have been some dissenting voices about China's support for the Russian war in Ukraine inside China. These largely have been retired officials or academics who publish in foreign outlets, and they mostly discuss problems with Russia's policies, not with China's. However, there are some drawbacks to China's growing cooperation with these 3 countries. And interestingly, I think that Russia is at the center here because it's Russia's military cooperation with Iran and North Korea that causes the problems that China now encounters. A key area of coordination that I have found in my research is between China and Russia in the disinformation sphere. And there we see substantial efforts to develop content sharing, to optimize social media platforms, to increase information control, and to direct strategically the narratives that they both employ. Nonetheless, there are some areas of divergence between China and Russia. I have a long list in my testimony. However, I do think that they are deepening their ties, and this is a durable relationship, not easily subject to wedges or reverse Kissinger maneuvers or other such enterprises. They have made a political decision to emphasize areas of agreement. Over history, if we look back centuries, the most persistent source of disagreement was about their border. And with growing nationalism in both countries, that could arise as a conflict in the future. But that's not one where we have a lot of influence. I would like to make 5 policy recommendations. I think the U.S. has many tools at its disposal to deal with the kinds of threats that these countries pose to Western interests and to our allies' interests. And we need to take advantage of these tools and not prevent them from being used, which is one of the problems we face today. So in terms of disinformation, there are key lines of effort that have demonstrated their effectiveness and have had bipartisan support until recently. The State Department's Global Engagement Center, there are some offices within USAID to counter malign activities in Russia and in China. The National Endowment for Democracy, and also Radio Liberty and Radio Free Europe have been key in supporting alternate narratives to those proposed by Russia and China. We need to continue to support long-term research on countering adversary threats throughout the U.S. government. And there was one such effort also funded by AID, Aid Data, which provided data-driven research on Chinese influence, economic influence efforts that many of us in the academic world use. We should be monitoring North Korea's illegal arm transfers through initiatives like the Proliferation Security Initiative. We should work with allies to combat cyber threats through regional efforts like the Tallinn mechanism that has been successful in helping Ukraine thwart cyber attacks from China and Russia. And we should support U.S. Coast Guard cooperation with Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan to counter the illegal arms transfers that Iran sends to Russia via the Caspian Sea and revive the Caspian Initiative, which had been involved in this effort in the early 2000s. Thank you very much for this opportunity.